I think that today is the beginning of a very, very big choice for America. And we got to this position because as the economy has decayed, and the report last Thursday by the Federal Reserve I thought was very, very sobering, because the Federal Reserve, in releasing their June minutes, said that they expected unemployment to be worse. They were raising their estimate above 10% for where unemployment would peak. And they expected the recovery, when it comes, to be basically without new jobs. And they warned that we could have up to 5 years of no net new jobs. And that's a very sobering report from the Federal Reserve. So when we looked at that, we felt that we really had to get the country to talk to Washington, because it's very clear, whether you're in Washington or you're in Sacramento, California, or Albany, New York, or Trenton, New Jersey, many of these state capitals, that the politicians don't understand yet. After all, they have jobs, and their staffs have jobs, and their lobbyists have jobs. And so they have all sorts of priorities that don't focus on job creation. And we think the number one question in America should be whether or not we should focus on creating jobs so that we don't just have anemic economic growth while people stay unemployed, but we actually go back and take the steps necessary to succeed in the world market and to create jobs in the world market. So from that perspective, we created a program of jobs here, jobs now, and jobs first, really making the argument that the first goal of government should be getting Americans back to work, because America can't work if Americans are not working. And the best thing you can do for families is make sure that everybody has a chance to get a job. The best thing you can do for people who are currently trapped in poverty is make sure that everybody can get a job. You can't do that if you don't have enough job creation going on. In addition, if you're a young person and you voted for change you can believe in, and now you discover that you may not be able to get a job for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, or you may only get a job that keeps you trapped with no pay raise and no economic future, I think virtually everybody will agree that's not acceptable to be an American. America ought to be about the right to pursue happiness, the right to go to work, the right to create a better future, the right to have a dream that someday you can buy a house, that someday you can in fact create the kind of future you want for yourself and your family. Now, so the first question is, what should our priorities be? Unfortunately, the current governing system has said the priority ought to be, let's have a gigantic energy tax, which would kill jobs. Let's pass a health bill that has a huge cost, which would kill jobs. They have every priority except jobs. And in fact, I think it will be fascinating this evening to see how much time the President spends explaining job creation and the economy before he gets off on his newest priority, which is unfortunately not creating jobs. Now, we're taking a very different approach. First of all, we talked with lots of people who create jobs. And as Dan Veroni said, the biggest job creators in America are small businesses. We've heard all about bailing out AIG. They were worth hundreds of billions of dollars in federal money, in your tax money. We've heard about bailing out General Motors, bailing out Chrysler, bailing out Citibank. Somehow, if you're giant, you get the money. What happens in every one of those cases? They shrink. We're giving them billions of dollars for them to reduce their workforce. There's not a single giant corporation getting government money which is hiring anybody. They're all laying people off. So you get the right to be taxed to loan money to a giant company which is going to increase the unemployment rate. Meanwhile, no one in this city has developed a jobs program aimed at the people who create jobs, and that's small business. And so we've proposed at American Solutions a very clear jobs here, jobs now, jobs first approach that emphasizes competing in the world market. And I want to emphasize this. If you design an economic program that does not help American businesses compete in the world market, the program is useless. The world market exists. It is real. We have competitors. We're not competing between New York and Philadelphia. We're competing with China, we're competing with India, we're competing with Europe, we're competing with Japan, we're competing across the world. And so we need to have a tax policy that creates jobs in a world market setting. And we have proposed 4 big steps towards a full employment America with dynamic economic growth in a world market. The first step is a 2-year 50% reduction in the Social Security and Medicare tax, including the employer match. First of all, every working American pays the Social Security and Medicare tax. So it's the most effective way. They may not get a pay raise this year in this economy, but they can get a take-home pay raise by reducing their tax burden. And so even people who are working at minimum wage, people who are right at the margins, working mothers with children in marginal jobs, everybody would get more take-home pay by having a 50% reduction in Social Security and Medicare tax, and that would help everybody pay off their debt and begin to move us back towards a healthy economy. But second, by having the employer match cut by 50%, you dramatically increase the liquidity of small businesses, you make it less necessary for them to borrow money, you increase their capacity to hire new people, you create a whole new economic system in which people are able to afford to employ people. We think if you want to have a true stimulus, you don't stimulate bureaucracy and politicians with $787 billion of spending as they tried to in January, which has clearly failed. They promised it would lead, as Dan Veroni pointed out, they said it would lead to no more than 8% unemployment. It's clearly going to be 25% worse than that at 10% or more. So we're going to have a quarter more unemployment than they said we would get if only we'd vote for a bill no one had read. And we think the way you actually have a true stimulus is to stimulate the small businesses that create so many jobs. Second, we believe if you want to compete with China in having the most productive factories, the best jobs, the highest take-home pay in the world, you match the Chinese rate on capital gains, which is 0. And at a 0 capital gains rate, you will see money pour into the United States to build factories. You'll see a whole new calculus by entrepreneurs. You will see venture capital explode with opportunities, and you'll begin to go back to a jump-starting of a whole new generation of job creation that we have frankly cut off with high taxes and with bills like the Sarbanes-Oxley bill, which made it very hard for people to launch new companies. Third, we believe that if you want companies to compete in the world market, the most effective corporate tax rate is the Irish tax rate, which is 12.5%. I was first led to this by Craig Barrett, who was the president at that time of Intel, who made the point that the United States, if you combine state and federal corporate income tax, has the highest corporate tax rate in the world. And that you then wonder why it's harder for us to create jobs. Well, our businesses have less after-tax profit left to invest in the next factory, to invest in the next job creation, to invest in the next new product. And if you went to the Irish rate, which has allowed Ireland to grow dramatically over the last 30 years, that 12.5%, you would make America very desirable to build the next factory and create the next investment. And in fact, Microsoft, for example, has all of their licensing in Ireland. Because if you were going to have your licensing taxed at the American rate, which is more than 3 times the Irish rate, or you're going to have it taxed at a much lower rate. I mean, one of our slogans is 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, just do the math and ask yourself, where would you put it? And so if you really want to get to a dynamic economy with a lot of job creation, you lower the tax rate on companies, eliminate the tax rate on saving and investing through the capital gains. And then finally, we would, for long-term economic health, abolish permanently the death tax. There's both a moral reason for doing this and an economic reason. The moral reason is that it's fundamentally wrong to require people to visit the undertaker and the IRS the same week. There's something fundamentally wrong about saying to people, if you want to be pro-work, pro-savings, pro-family, why would you punish somebody who's worked all their life, saved all their life, and created wealth to give their children and grandchildren? This is money they've already paid taxes on. And now we're going to go back and tax them a second time for having done everything right. Meanwhile, their twin brother or twin sister who did nothing right pays no taxes. And so you really have a system today where we punish those who work hard, we punish those who save, we punish those who focus on helping their own family. The fact is, the best, most effective technique of acquiring capital is for parents and grandparents to be able to save up for their children and grandchildren. Historically, that's how we got the seed corn that allowed people to go ahead and have better futures. That created a sense of intergenerational strength and support and continuity, and the death tax cuts across that. So let me just say, we are launching at American Solutions a project for jobs here, jobs now, jobs first. You will remember the last year at the peak of the gasoline tax, the gasoline prices, when they were $4 a gallon, we launched Drill Here, Drill Now, Pay Less, which in a matter of 6 weeks gathered 1,500,000 signatures and really fundamentally began to change the entire energy debate, so that today, for the first time in 27 years, there is no ban on looking for oil and gas offshore, and we are having a chance to develop American energy and return money here to the United States by having American companies and American workers produce American energy to keep the money here in our own economy. Similarly, we believe if we can reach out to every small business in America and to every person in America who would like to see jobs created as the #1 priority of government, we believe we can reset the entire national debate around a fundamental pro-jobs program. And that's our goal at American Solutions. And Dan's going to do several genuine job creators who we're delighted to have here with us. And then after that, we'll take questions. Thank you all very much.